Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. On Monday night, absent an agreement between port operators and longshoremen, 25,000 dock workers will go on strike, shutting down container exports through the U.S. ports on the East and Gulf coasts. Now, this strike won't have a big impact on bulk commodity shipments because those bulk agreements are handled under a different labor negotiation. But in the world of meat exports, container shipping is a big deal. Joining us now to discuss it is Joe Sheely. He's the Vice President of Communications at the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Joe, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Me as well. Joe, let's talk a little bit about what could happen to U.S. meat exports if this strike does in fact go into effect next week. Who's going to take it the hardest?
Well, the East and Gulf Coast ports are critical for both pork and beef exports. Our waterborne exports, and when I say waterborne, that's really everything except what we truck to Mexico and Canada. Almost everything else that we export moves on containers on ocean vessels. And for pork exports, 45% of those shipments go off the East and Gulf Coast ports. That's partly because our pork production happens throughout the country. A lot of pork is produced in the eastern part of the United States. And so those ports are the most efficient outlet for moving it into the international markets. Now, on the beef side, beef production tends to lean more to the west, and also our largest destinations are in Asia. So on the beef side, 30% of our waterborne beef exports go off the East and Gulf Coast ports. But don't let that 30% fool you. There's a very critical outlets for certain products. For example, we move a lot of high-value chilled beef, and when I say chilled, that means it's never frozen. Chilled beef to Europe and the Middle East, off the East Coast. That product really cannot be shipped off the West Coast because there isn't enough shelf life. And then we also have products like frozen beef livers that go to Egypt or South Africa or Angola. Our largest markets for beef livers are in that part of the world, and those tend to go off the East and Gulf Coast ports. Those could be rerouted off the West Coast, and in fact, we do ship some livers and other variety meat from the West Coast to that part of the world, but redirecting that product off the West Coast is not cost effective, and it's not a long-term solution. It would put those shipments in jeopardy because they may not be economically viable if that product has to be trucked to the West Coast.
That makes sense, Joe. So are we seeing exporters already put contingency plans in place to keep some of these products moving?
Yes, I believe there has been some diversion of products with the ports and with carriers already announcing deadlines and contingency plans for the strike. I believe some exporters have started to try to move product to the West Coast. And again, that's a possible solution for some of these shipments, but for other cases, it's not going to make economic sense. And so you really got a situation where you're going to be scrambling to find solutions. We've made the information available to our members how they might ship, for example, out of Montreal.
Okay.
And that is a possibility, but it's really not a good solution because when you think about it, you're going to have dozens and dozens of industries trying to do the same thing. And so under these dire circumstances, it's probably not a solution, except for some possible shipments maybe going out of states like Michigan or Pennsylvania or Indiana.
If it's in their backyard.
That might be a possibility.
We could see that makes sense. Joe Sheely, Vice President of Communications with the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Thanks for keeping a close eye on this issue.
Thank you, Mike.
Save instantly when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag tires during the Firestone Fall into Savings promotion now until October 31st. Visit firestoneag.com or contact your local certified ag dealer. It's time to talk markets. Joining us this week is Don Close, the Chief Research and Analytics Officer at Terrain. Don, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Let's talk cattle market. Don, it has been a wild ride for 3 years in the cattle market. As we sit here, fall of 2024, are cattle prices going higher or lower in the next 2 months?
I think this market still has room to the top side. The summer market, early fall, has it tested us? Yes. Is it broken? No. And as cattle supplies tighten, demand's still holding up incredibly well. So the combination of the two, I still think over 2025, 2026, still think there's room to the top side.
All right. Well, let's dig into this supply. That has been the issue that has really helped push cattle prices to these levels. Cattle on Feed report out last week. No major surprises. Don, this beef supply doesn't seem to be growing in the countryside, is it?
It's not growing in the countryside. The thing that we really got to look at, it's not the placement rate. It's not even necessarily disappointing marketing. It's the additional days on feed that is enabling that on-feed number to the resiliency that we're seeing with the on-feed number. As placements contract as we go through the fall into early next year, we'll finally start to see that on-feed number drop below a year ago levels.
Don, you mentioned huge days on feed. We're putting these cattle on feed and we're keeping them there. We're getting some very heavy carcass weights. Are we at record carcass weights right now on the cattle side?
For where we're at seasonally, we are at a record level. Okay. Seasonally, those weights should continue to increase into mid to late November. At the trajectory we're on, we could see that thing peak in that 918 to 920 level. So clearly a record when the year's over.
Absolutely. Don, given that we do have these increased weight carcasses coming through the processing facility, what's that doing for total beef production? If we put another 10 pounds on these carcasses, are we making up for a lot of lost calves?
We're slaughter year to date's running roughly 4.5% behind a year ago. Cow slaughter is down 15%. But even with that reduction, total beef production is only down about 1%. So the increased carcass weights are offsetting the decline we've seen in FI slaughter.
You mentioned the decrease in cow slaughter. Don, that brings up something we've been talking about for years, which is when is this herd going to start to get rebuilt? With the cow slaughter coming down, is that an indication that maybe producers are retaining these cows?
For 24, no. Because the percentage of heifers in the feed yard mix is still so high, we were at 39.6% in July. We'll have a revision of that heifers on feed number with the October on feed report. But from what we're seeing and watching sale barn receipts, we don't think that there's any measurable retention of heifers taking place as of yet. That decline in heifer going back to the herd is completely offsetting that decline in cow slaughter. So still no, for 24, we're looking for another net decline in cattle inventory.
All right, Don, you mentioned we're watching 39% of the calves on feed right now are heifers, an indication that those producers are moving the calves into the beef supply, not keeping them on the farm. What would you expect that percentage to drop to when we do start retaining heifers as an industry?
So the neutral zone in that ratio between 36 and 37% is just we're not expanding, we're not contracting. So we have to pull that heifer percentage below 36%. And if you go back to where we were in 2014, 2015, you could see that percentage drop as low as 32 to 33% when we really aggressively start retaining females.
Do you think we'll get to that point in 2025, Don?
I'm skeptical.
You think we still could have more room to run before the heifer retention starts?
The slow recovery in this. I think drought conditions, pasture and range conditions are still a big challenge. I think the interest rate impact is having some impact. I think the average age of cow owners is having an impact. So I think it will ultimately happen, but I don't think we're necessarily to that point yet.
All right, we'll be back with more from Don Close of Terrain. Save instantly when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag tires during the Firestone Fall into Savings promotion, now until October 31st. Visit firestoneag.com or contact your local certified ag dealer. And we're back, talking markets with Don Close, the Chief Research and Analytics Officer with Terrain. Don, we're talking the cattle market. We talked about supply. Let's talk about the other side of the ledger, which is demand. The all-beef fresh price continues to push into record territory. Don, when is the consumer going to back off?
We keep looking for that trigger signal, and to date, we're not seeing it. In fact, when we look at real per capita expenditures by class of beef, but with all beef to the other species, beef demand has held incredibly well through this whole cycle.
Price-wise, are we seeing beef move unacceptably high compared to other commodities out there in the grocery store for consumers?
No, it's not. Now, we're seeing a little bit of adjustments. Obviously, we're not seeing the push for high-end middle meats that we were seeing, say, a year ago. But when you take that whole beef package and you compare it to the other proteins, beef demand is holding up incredibly well. Specifically, ground beef demand has been amazing.
It has. And of course, ground beef demand, that's where we see imports come into play in the cattle sector in a big way to get that lean demand in. We heard from the U.S. Meat Export Federation about the concerns over this port strike that could be coming up next week, Don. From your perspective in the markets, what impact could that have on the beef industry?
Unquestionably, it's going to have an impact. The overwhelming majority of imports into the U.S. arrive the East Coast and specifically Philadelphia. So could it hinder that flow of lean beef trimmings coming to the patty manufacturers? It sure could. Is it going to be a potential hindrance for U.S. exports? Yes. So we still have that dollar value of what we're selling compared to what we're buying. But I do think it could have, given the tight supply of lean beef trimmings, it could have a potentially explosive influence on 90% lean.
All right, speaking of imports and exports, Don, on the import side, do you expect those lean imports to stay strong if this port thing can be negotiated?
Oh, I do, and I think we absolutely need them. We've already talked earlier about the reduction in cow slaughter this year at 15%, that given the U.S. demand for all blends of ground beef, we're totally dependent on that inflow of 90% lean to blend off to have an adequate ground beef supply.
That corn-fed beef we grow is just delicious and fatty, so we need that imported lean product to blend. Don, before we let you go, we've got to talk a little bit about the hog market. We're seeing prices down substantially from where they've been over the past 2 summers. What are the struggles that the hog market's dealing with?
It's still a huge challenge. There's challenges on the supply side that even with the decline we've seen in sow numbers, the escalation in efficiency, the number of pigs saved per litter, they're just not able to slow that sow number down enough to really offset that pig supply. That's the supply side. On the demand side, there just continues to be challenges to keep that product cleared.
Got to see if the consumer will step in there with high beef prices, buy some more pork, but so far, not enough.
They're each holding their own.
They're holding their own. Don Close, Chief Research and Analytics Officer at Terrain, thank you so much for joining us this week.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, Greg Solier, tell us what's coming in the Pacific Northwest in this week ahead.
Pretty docile, quiet weather pattern, Mike, compared to what's been going on across parts of the deep south and southeastern states up to the southern Corn Belt and points out of the east. It's a little more of an onshore flow. The hot ridge has collapsed somewhat. More of a direct flow up aloft, west to east on this jet stream current. So weather systems without the big dips here and there over the Pacific Northwest just scoot right along. Little, if any, significant organized moisture. A product of some cool air on the move as we get Helene to make their way and her way out across the western Atlantic. So a pretty quiet setup. We've had some easing in the fire situation, some containment going on, and of course the last of any grain harvest going on to the Pacific Northwest, and that should continue on for the end part of the week as well. Somewhat cooler air into Washington State last week, 90 to 95 across the divide and in through Big Sky Country. So a push a little more typical late September, early October air into the northern plains. Still no sign of any widespread frost or freeze trees, and we may very well go well into November for parts of the Corn Belt before seeing that. Quiet weather picture to the northern valleys of California. A couple of spotty showers and thunderstorms into sections of the Central Divide. That's it. Quiet weather picture 2, although a little troughiness offshore into the northern and central valleys of California, so maybe a sprinkle possible there. Quiet through the desert southwest. Again, just a little leftover monsoon setup with an errant shower thunderstorm. Here comes the push of cooler, drier air across sections of Nebraska, the northern and central high plains. Opportunities should continue on for any early harvest operations. And the jet stream begins to build back to the north. The warm to hot ridge over the Four Corners, an errant thunderstorm chance. Cooler, drier air moving into the northern and central plains. Some heat down through Texas, and a cool off slated for the northern valleys of California. So, western states, not a lot going on here in these waiting days of September.
Does that quiet outlook persist through the central part of the country?
It does, at least over the northern and central plains. As we move into the Ohio Valley, this is the last of any leftover tropical moisture that will have maybe accumulated in some of the area rain gauges down near the Ohio, close to 6 inches as Helene makes her way into the western Atlantic. We do get a little dip of the jet stream following thing. This is called a kicker weather system, so it moves all the deep tropical moisture out with cooler, drier air on the move. Do not fret, do not panic about harvest, by the way. Despite recent beneficial rains, especially over some of the worst dry and drought-ridden areas, look at this set of maps and charts for the late portion of the week. Drier air, cool off for the Great Lakes region, warm building back west of the Missouri. We will be getting at it here with time as the days and weeks wear on. Probably an early wrap to the harvest season. Some lingering heat across the Rio Grande, maybe a stray shower and thunderstorm in the southwestern states. The last of tropical moisture in the front interacting with the leftover moisture from Helene means scattered showers and thunderstorms there for the middle part of the week. Looky here, Mike, another system at least coming out of the Gulf, maybe 2 more in the western Atlantic with cleanup and recovery from about the Tennessee Valley southeast from the recent tropical storm and hurricane.
Let's look east, Greg. That Helene has been the topic of conversation. What other factors are you watching next week?
Well, again, the movement of the last of Helene out of the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic states. Again, the worst drought areas, especially over the Ohio Valley, will have seen significant rain, but again, some harvest delays. Note the push of cooler, drier air over the northern and western Corn Belt, and this is a delightful go of it for outdoor work and harvest operations. You could probably rubber stamp this with a moderating trend in temperatures west to east in the days and weeks to come across the Corn Belt locales. Last of Helene out of the mid-Atlantic region. Again, cleanup and recovery coming off the massive storm surge. A lot of open bowl cotton down there across the southeastern states with at least 2 more weather systems on the maps and charts over the late portion of the week.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pentair Hypro, a global leader in innovative spray technology for farmers for over 75 years.
As more and more farmers adopt the use of drones on the farm for different uses, particularly for spraying, conversations about those uses were popping up. And while we were at the Farm Progress Show earlier this year in Boone, Iowa, I had the chance to talk with Simon Asselin about HSE UAV.
We do consider ourselves the spray drone experts. We started our veteran-owned business in 2009. And we brought spraying drones to the United States in 2015 as one of the very first, if not the first, companies to do so.
That's incredible. I mean, this drone industry has exploded tremendously in 15 years. You guys have been in business, leading the industry. You mentioned you're veteran-owned. And what all services does HSE UAV provide?
Absolutely. So we offer the equipment sales. We offer product knowledge and training classes for the equipment. And we do also partner with dealers for services as well.
Gotcha. Now, when we think about spray drones, I mean, we've been hearing about them here at the Farm Progress Show for at least the last 5 years. We've had folks on the grounds displaying it, but it always seems like it's coming. These spray drones are coming. They're almost here, but that's not the case anymore. This is an industry that's here. It's established. Can you give us an update overall? How many acres are we seeing sprayed by drones today?
It's unbelievable. I mean, the technology has progressed so much over the last just couple years. It's really gone from being a research tool to something that every farmer can have in their barn. In 2023, we know the spraying drones collectively have sprayed over 4 million acres.
Wow!
Over 50 types of crops just in the United States. And I truly believe that in 2024, when we get these stats for next year, we'll probably see that number close to double.
Oh, wow. No kidding. So we're talking 8-10 million acres maybe by the end of the 2025-24 growing season. Simon, let's talk a little bit about the drones that you guys offer, that you're working with your growers. Precision technology is such a key component of this, and especially when it comes to efficiency.
Yes.
With margins like this, talk about how your clients have used drones to be better operators.
Absolutely. So we offer a couple different brands of spraying drones. We're not exclusive to a particular brand. We really like to sell and offer what we think works best. Okay. So that's something that makes us a little bit different. We really primarily offer the two most popular models that we sell are XAG, which is one brand, and DJI, which is another. They're the two top selling models globally currently.
Gotcha. Yeah. What kind of features do they bring to the market on the spray type drones? What should farmers be looking for as we dip our toe into this industry?
Right. So efficiency and productivity is really what farmers want. Yeah. They want to see which one can do the most acres per hour. So that's one of the key aspects. Our largest model that we offer can get up to 70 acres per hour in ideal operations. And that's just with one drone. And one of the beauties of spraying drones is it's very easily scalable. So you can double, triple, quadruple the operation if you need to.
So that was my next question. We've heard a lot about swarms. The idea that more than one drone can be controlled by a single operator covering a field. Is the technology there yet, Simon? Can we do that sort of thing today?
Absolutely. The technology is already here. Most of the drones that we sell are already swarm capable. And even better, the regulatory side of it with the FAA is also allowing swarming operations of up to 3 drones per pilot.
Okay, so if we've got 3 drones of those large drones in the field, theoretically, we could be covering 210 acres an hour. Am I understanding the math right?
Yes, and I think it's only going to continue to get better as the technology progresses. We're already expecting the 2025 models, of course, to be bigger, faster, better. You know, it's progressing incredibly quickly.
Now, it's been a while since I've run a sprayer across the field. I'll be really honest. My certifications are all expired. But as I think about the ability to cover 210 acres, we've got to be refueling that drone. We've got to be restocking that drone. We've got to change the batteries. Can you give us some idea of the ease of use for either a contractor, custom spraying, or a farmer? If we want to spray our own, what's that transition look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the drones are being refilled constantly. That's one of the things with the drones, that your job, more so than a pilot, is refilling and charging batteries.
Okay, so I'm standing at the trailer, drone's coming back, and my job is to load, unload, get her back up in the air.
That's right. Most of our teams out there offering custom application services are running a crew, maybe 1 pilot and a ground crew for every drone or 2 drones. Okay. And that's really what ends up being the most efficient setup, so that our time on the ground, we try to target 45 seconds for our pit stop. We're like a NASCAR pit crew.
Wow. Yeah. And how many gallons of product do you typically carry in one of these spray drones?
Yeah, so the current model, that's the largest model that we have, is about 13.5 gallons. We typically spray at 2 gallons per acre for most corn fungicide and 3 gallons for herbicide, which will give us about 7 acres per flight. And that will be, depending on the field size, maybe only 5 or 6 minutes to empty that tank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, again, when we think of driving a ground rig over the corn, over the soybeans versus flying on a drone, my understanding is as this drone technology improves, we're learning that the coverage, due to the way the drone rotors move the air, can be improved. Can you give me a little more? I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm
absolutely
not an agronomist. What are the facts as far as we know on that?
So the drones offer a lot of benefits. We have a lot of guys already using aerial application by plane and helicopters, and a lot of the benefits carry right over to drones, which is the speed they can apply and the concentration of the product that's being applied ends up being a better overall efficiency of the product. In addition to that, the actual operation is fully automated. So the pilot is really just setting up a boundary for the drone to fly in, and the drone does everything else for you. So it's a hands-off experience for most operators. It's fast, it's easy, and it doesn't take a whole lot of training to really learn how to use it properly.
Yes, that ease of use is very popular with farmers across the country. Leave it here. We'll have more This Week in Agribusiness after this.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. It has been a tough growing season for farmers in Ohio. And for this week's Plan Smart, Grow Smart, Max Armstrong had the chance to visit with Evan Schaefer, and he found reasons to be optimistic.
Tell us about your farm.
We farm about 3,200 acres. We're half corn, half soybeans, and then we usually plant about 300 acres of wheat.
It looks like highly productive soil in your neighborhood. Describe the actual lay of the land here.
We've been really dry. I know that's a lot different than most of the rest of the country, but we're blessed with pretty decent soil, so we have pretty productive land.
You farm with your father here?
Yep. I'm a third-generation farmer.
I think about father-son combinations that I know and how they embrace or approach new things coming along. Talk about how it works in your operation. How do you look at something new and decide, well, okay, we want to try this?
We're always looking at the newest things. We may not be the first person to adopt them, but we know about them, try to know about them as soon as they're coming out so we can start evaluating what they're doing. We've talked about Veltima. We had some of the first jugs I know around. They brought little blue gallon sample jugs in.
Working with the BASF representatives over the last 4 or 5 years, how has that changed your operation?
We're fighting different weeds than we were 5 years ago. So as the products have evolved and how we've utilized the products has also evolved, and just having an advisor to tell us how to utilize the products correctly is very important.
Your BASF representative, I gather, is one of your team advisors upon whom you rely.
Yeah, and really it's a team at BASF. We have a seed guy, a crop protection guy, and a seed treatment guy, and we get advice from all three of them. It's a great team, and they keep us moving forward.
What does the future look like? We understand there's another generation of the family out there coming along before too long.
I'm looking to grow yield more than I am acres. I want the future to be better for my children than it was for me, and I know that it's better for me than it was for Dad when he started. We keep working every day. I tell Dad, it's job security, that's for sure. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist, but I think the future's bright.
Thank you, Max and Evan. Folks, if you'd like to see the full Plan Smart, Grow Smart series, all of those videos are online at plansmartgrowsmart.com.
Greg Solier is back now with his extended farm weather forecast for the nation.
Earlier in the program, Greg Solier mentioned it's going to be a quiet week, precipitation-wise, for most of the country, but not everyone, Greg. Who's going to see the rain?
Yeah, especially from the Mississippi on westward and northward, little if any organized moisture. So if you are in the early harvest mode or were set back on recent rains, with time, you'll get it going over the southern Corn Belt locale. Still need some warmth here to get the beans to maturity. Otherwise, boy, just clean up and recovery off the devastation. Peanut harvest was just getting underway through Georgia. Lots of open boll cotton. Mind you, this is the third year in a row to see a tropical system out of the Gulf, Eastern Gulf, make its way up through the Appalachian Trail. And here are at least 2 more features we got to keep an eye on as the week wears on. But early in the week, the last of the moisture out of the southern Corn Belt area is dry through the upper Midwest. A couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms and downpours in the southwest. Little, if any, organized moisture into the Pacific Northwest, Mike.
The week of October 7th. Greg, what do you see temperature-wise in the outlook?
There's no real cold air in sight. We do buckle the jet stream once in a while when we get these tropical systems up the eastern seaboard. So a little sliver of cool air, maybe a little whimper of frost into the northern parts of New England, southern Canadian prairie. But this is wide and expansive, almost a late summertime to mid-summertime heat in the plain states, 90 or higher. We've seen that the past few up through Big Sky and the western Dakotas. Temperatures about normal into the Pacific Northwest, and with that ridge, if you will, and the tropical systems, anything organized is really down here through the Delta, eastern states. Again, maybe 2 more features to keep an eye out for up through the northeast of New England. Pretty good go of it with outdoor work and harvest operations from the Corn Belt back into the plains, and a dry scenario back in through California too.
Any return to seasonal temperatures as we get into the week of October 14th?
Absolutely not here. In this particular setup here, as we wind our way out of an El Nino to a neutral state. But again, the tropics, anytime you get the Atlantic basin busy, you build up high pressure in this part of the country. Weather stagnates Here you go with warm temperatures, good moisture reduction, evaporative losses, a little buckle in the western states, so a bit of moisture in the Pacific Northwest and Big Sky. That would be welcome. A little onslaught of some Texas moisture out of the Gulf, a tropical system here, another one maybe in the Outer Banks. So again, wet weather up and down the eastern seaboard. Dry as a bone across the Corn Belt. Combines will be a-rolling.
As we get to that third week in October, Greg, any change on that temperature outlook?
Getting ready to ramp up into Halloween, and nothing too frightful here. Another push of some cooler air, probably with another tropical system out of the western Atlantic. Look at the warmth from Mississippi back into the plains all the way to the Pacific coast, and little if any organized moisture, with the exception of areas up towards the Sioux, the northeast of New England, and up and down the eastern seaboard. A busy weather pattern with a western Gulf Coast system and another one or two coming out of the western Atlantic as well. So the beat goes on. Opportunities to roll those combines with time in the weeks to come.
Our Farm Progress Roundup is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of versatile high-speed discs and achieve better results with every pass. Visit Brandt.ca for more. Well, folks, we love to get to know the different faces around the Farm Progress offices, and this week we're going one level up. We're meeting with Greg Hamilton. He's an Executive Vice President with Informa Markets. And Greg, thanks for joining us this week.
Hey, great to be here.
Informa Markets, Greg, talk to us a little bit about how that ties in with Farm Progress.
Okay, well, Informa Markets is a really large company based in London. It operates vertical trade shows and media in almost 100 different vertical markets. And we kind of pride ourselves in being very close in these markets to the specialists, the people who are doing business, buying and selling together. And we do that every day all around the world. It's the largest trade show producer in the world. My role is to head up the aviation and agriculture groups. And also I run digital strategy across about 9 of these vertical markets. And they're in very different markets, but we all sort of try to do the same thing, which is be very useful and enable our communities with information that helps them do their jobs. Whether it's the farmers, or it's the vice president of maintenance or director of maintenance at an airline or any market. So our job is to be useful, provide great information, connect people digitally and face-to-face at our events, and help them grow and be successful.
Absolutely, Greg. We've seen that, of course, wrapped up a series of great events with Farm Progress earlier this summer. As you look out to the future, what has you excited about the ag industry specifically, looking out to 2025?
Well, the ag industry has a lot of challenges, but there's always also a lot of innovation, technology, opportunities in different niches in terms of the farmers diversifying their portfolios, being more effective. So I think the most exciting thing is the rapid innovation in the industry itself, and the essential nature of the agriculture industry. It feeds the world. It's a growth industry globally, and there are ups and downs, but it'll always, in the end, be up. So we're very excited about this sector.
That is good to hear, Greg. Of course, Informa Markets has been making investments in Farm Progress to make sure we stay close to those doers in the industry. Can you talk a little bit, looking forward, what sort of investments or improvements would you like to continue to see happen here at Farm Progress?
Well, the core investment in our business is content. People who produce really useful content. It can't just be entertaining or interesting. It has to be useful and actionable and help get something done. So it's people, it's editors, it's journalists, it's the technology that helps them do their business. It's the data about the audiences that help them understand what their audiences need down to the very niche level. A farmer growing corn and soybeans is different than a farmer growing cotton or organics or ranchers and folks in the livestock market. So we have to understand that very, very deeply, and we're using a lot of investment in technology and data, and then the people side of it to make that an even better value proposition for everybody.
That's what it all comes back to. Have good people who know what they're talking about, and that content looks amazing. Greg Hamilton, Executive Vice President at Informa Markets, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Great to be here. Thank you for your time.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. It still happens to this day. Every now and then I'll hear from somebody who said, oh my goodness, what I found in this little town, or what I found in this old barn sitting out there. It can be the start of a magnificent restoration. We'll show you a nice Alice Chalmers from Illinois. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants producers are made to make it last. Well, who could imagine there'd be any old iron sitting around yet in old barns? You would think, after all of these years, just about everything has been found and pulled out of a fence row, maybe located in an old barn somewhere, an old shed, pulled out and restored. Every now and then, though, you'll hear a great success story of one more barn find. Well, Jim Krieger recalls when he found a tractor sitting in an old shed near Wyanett, Illinois. Take a look at this great restoration of an unstyled 1936 Alice Chalmers WC. This tractor, according to Jim, was always in that Wyanett area. It was sitting in an old barn for years, and he was able to complete an excellent restoration. Yeah, there was some body work that had to take place, and as you can see, an excellent paint job, and the tractor got new tires too. It took about a year and a half for that restoration, a Suburban performed by Jim Krieger in Bureau County, Illinois, near the community of Wyanett. The tractor in Max's Tractor Shed this weekend at 1936 Alice Chalmers. Let's go to Mark Stock right now to get the lowdown on what's selling on Big Iron in the week ahead.
Well, hello, Max. The combines are rolling and the land is selling. And on Monday, September the 30th, 166 acres of Hancock and Schuyler County, Illinois land will sell in 4 tracts. And on Thursday, October the 3rd, 155 acres of Stanton County, Nebraska dry cropland will sell. Also on October the 3rd, 7 lots in Hughes and Beetle County, South Dakota will be sold to the highest bidder. On Wednesday, October the 2nd, 930 items will sell, including items from the Robert Red Ryder Antique John Deere Tractor Collection located in Akron, Colorado. Tractors include John Deere 830s, 820s, John Deere Rs, As, Ms, and Ds, plus his collector cars. Speaking of collector cars, please check out the Lukeman Collection, the 2-day sale, Monday and Tuesday, October 14th and 15th, items located in Jacksonville, Illinois. Items will include 100 classic vehicles, along with vintage motorcycles, scooters, gas pumps, neon and other signs, pedal cars, gas station fixtures, and other significant items. Please go to BigIronandSullivanAuctioneers.com for more information on this impressive 2-day, no-reserve collector car auction.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. Well, this week we're getting to know Anna Mohlers. Ordinarily, she would be starting her sophomore year at Wilmington College, but this year she's taking a year off to serve as president of Ohio State FFA. Anna, thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about the Ohio State FFA. How many members do you guys have?
Yeah, so this year we are proudly sporting 29,494 members. This is a record for us, so we're very excited for the upcoming school year.
A record membership, so enrollment continues to grow. Interest is growing, right, in FFA?
Yep, very much so. It's gone up pretty consistently for the past several years, so we're very excited about it.
That's always good to hear. Anna, as you look out to this year ahead, are there any opportunities for the FFA that you're excited about?
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's so many. So many people probably know about the National FFA Convention that happens in Indianapolis, right at the Lucas Oil Stadium. That's probably my favorite event. Essentially 70,000 FFA members from across the country all gather in Indianapolis for about 4 days. And we listen to the sessions that are completed by the national FFA officers. There's lots of awards to be given. There's an expo center, and that's coming up right at the end of October. So that's definitely one I'm really looking forward to. And then throughout the rest of the year, we had FFA camp during the summer. My team and I have started chapter visits, which is where we go to chapters from across the state and we visit with members. There's been so many exciting things already. It's been a fantastic year.
And it sounds like you've got a lot of enthusiasm to match the hard work that will be required over this next year. But Anna, let's look out a little farther. After you finish your year of service to the Ohio FFA, do you hope to find a career in agriculture?
Yeah, very much so. So as you mentioned before, I would be at my sophomore year at Wilmington College. But after this year's service, I'll return, and I'm currently majoring in agri-science education and agriculture business. My goal after completing college is to be an agricultural educator in the state of Ohio. So I would also be an FFA advisor in addition to that. So my goal is to kind of return to how I got started in this organization.
And growing up in high school, your chapter have a big impact on you?
Very much so. Yes, they are without a doubt the reason that I am where I am today. All of my advisors, I was blessed to have 4 of them. They are simply wonderful. They've encouraged me in more ways that I could possibly count, and I'm very grateful for them.
Fantastic. Anna, well, we wish you the best of luck as your year as Ohio State FFA's president.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by PTX, a new brand from AGCO that includes precision ag technologies from Precision Planting and PTX Trimble. Ordinarily, Chad's tech segments involve bits and bytes and things that go on your phone. This week, he's got something for us made of cold steel.
You know what? I believe the cordless grease gun was the first cordless tool on many farms, and I've got to show you this great attachment for yours. Lock and Lube makes a return valve for your cordless grease gun. We all know how powerful these are. I know Milwaukee's is north of 10,000 pounds. They make a lot of pressure. And with that comes a new set of challenges. And as you can see right here in this example, as I put the coupler on, pull the trigger, you can see that hose start to get rigid because the Zerk's not taking all the grease. And look what happens. When you pop off the coupler, you've got a big mess. So what this valve does is it eliminates that. So I'd been researching this, decided to buy one. It's about $60. They make it for Milwaukee, DeWalt, and Lincoln grease guns. And as you can see right here, I've obviously sped up this video a little bit. It's a very easy process. I think it might have taken me, 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 at the most, to install it. You remove the hose, you add the coupler, you put the little block on. Super easy, super straightforward. I will say Lock and Lube also makes a lot of other great attachments. Actually, I think we had one on here several years ago. They've got the coupler. They actually make a swivel that goes on the hose as well. Lots of neat stuff. But I can tell you this, I was a little skeptical about it. The reviews were really good, but I wanted to go right back to that grease Zerk after I put it on just to see the difference myself. And check this out. This is so cool to see in real time. Here it is. I pulled the trigger. You can see the hose getting rigid again, so you know there's pressure there. And watch this. I just return the release, take the coupler off, no big mess. A+ Lock and Lube for a great attachment for your cordless grease gun. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. Love seeing new ways to solve old problems. Folks, stay with us. Before we go, we'll get an update from Pioneer on what's happening between the rows. Well, our friends at Pioneer have been keeping an eye on what's happening between the rows of the farm fields across this country. And right now, we're going to talk with Pioneer field agronomist John Olson. He works out of southeast South Dakota. John, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Pleasure to be here, Mike.
How are soybeans looking up in your neck of the woods, John?
So far, they look all right. It's been a very challenging year. We were extremely wet early. Now we're dry late. We experienced flooding the end of June. Lots of replanting, some drownouts, and even some whole fields all the way into July. But the fields that got off to a good start, they're doing well. We wish we could have finished a little stronger with some more rain, but overall, it'll be a okay crop.
Well, you mentioned some of those challenges. John, what were some of the biggest challenges that your growers faced?
Like I mentioned, with all that rain early, getting in and getting fields sprayed timely was a challenge. And then, of course, when you're that wet, the weeds thrive. So I would say weed control was the biggest challenge this year.
John, resistant weeds are a concern across the country. How do these new Z-Series beans from Pioneer help control weed resistance?
Yeah, like we said, the Z-Series containing the Enlist E3 trait help us a ton with the herbicide-resistant weeds. In our neck of the woods, it's water hemp and it's kochia. The ability to tank mix the 240 choline of Enlist 1 with a glufosinate product has been lights out on helping us control those tough to control weeds post-emergence. But as a reminder, it always starts with a good burn down and a good pre-emergence to set yourself up for success.
All right, and of course it's great to have those defensive traits, particularly when dealing with a year like this one. But at the end of the day, John, I gotta ask, how is yield? How are these Z-Series beans competing on the yield front?
Yeah, they're fantastic. This is our first year getting some whole field looks at these beans. And it's a new step change in agronomics and yield for Pioneers. Breeding we've never seen before, and we're looking at quick row closure, good emergence to help with that weed control, but also bringing more peaking resistance, more Phytophthora control, better standability, white mold tolerance. Everything is a little bit of a step above what you've been used to with Pioneer soybeans.
As you look out to 2026 and more Z-Series beans are coming, John, which fields are you going to really target with these new traits?
Well, we're going to have a very, very strong supply of Z-Series soybeans, so we've got the right variety for the right acre. You can throw any field at us, and we got the right variety for it. Full range of maturities and defensive traits and top-end yield to go with it. So bring it on. We got the right variety for any field.
All right, John. Well, before we let you go, of course, harvest is getting close for a lot of growers in the upper Midwest. Are there any pieces of advice you've got for folks to maintain that last little bit of yield?
Absolutely. You know, first and foremost, we want to get at these beans when they're 13%. We all know the yield loss that occurs when we're harvesting drier beans. So timely harvest, the right combine settings. And, you know, we've got some other pests that we're dealing with in South Dakota we're not real used to. You know, stem borer, gall midge. These are things that timely harvest could really prevent major losses from those pests as well. So just get out there timely as best you can, and you'll have a successful harvest.
That's what it's all about. John Olson, Pioneer Field Agronomist, thank you for joining us here Between the Rows.
Thank you for the time.
Well, it won't be long indeed, and those combines will be running. Folks, if you take some harvest pictures, be sure to tag us on social media. Search for This Week in Agribusiness on your favorite social media spot, and be sure to let us know how it's coming. And be sure to join us right back here next time. Same place, same time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.